Roundup number 21. We're just moving right along here. Number 21. I've been doing this for almost half a year now. And I am joined today by my guest, Starlight Pumpkins.
Howdy, howdy, everybody.
Most of my audience will know him. Some of you may not, but, you'll have to get to know him. And if you don't, you'll have to see his streams on YouTube when he starts that back up. I met him on Twitch.
I will. Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see my thing. I do sometimes, like once a month, I will post a video on YouTube, so there is still content on that front. It's not totally dormant.
Yep, and he does have a couple world records, the Harvester world records on speedruns. I think.
Well, speaking of speedruns, I was doing some offline stuff for Clock Tower, and that game can burn in hell. Like 100, like I have tears in my eyes. Like 100 times, I'm trying to get the 180 for the S ending.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't give it to me, and then I'm doing something else. Like I'm just like getting screenshots for thumbnails for other things on Clock Tower, and during the screenshot gathering, I get the 180. First time I ever get the 180, and it doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's awful. That's awful. I'm sorry. But you'll get it again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Eventually. Just like I'll get it, one day. I'll be able to beat Alexia 1 without dying. Even though I have both world records right now, it's like I'd have to, if I was ever to do that world record again, it would be nasty. Like it would just. I hope nobody.
Yeah, the games are sentient.
They really are. They really are. All right, so we'll get into the topics today. The first topic we're going to start with, we have UFOs, and recently the U.S. Congress did a hearing. They did a hearing with, who was it with? It was turn whistleblower David Grush, I guess. I don't know who this guy is, but he testified before Congress regarding the UFOs and said that that there's been like some non-human DNA discovered, and they had basically they're a little bit more common than has been alluded to in our government. I'm gonna let you take kind of the lead on this because you were a little bit more probably have a little bit more knowledge than I do, and give some thoughts on this.
Actually, going to be honest with you, I actually don't have too much, because I heard about it recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason I picked this topic is I wanted to hear your thoughts and views on it. And the reason I picked it in the first place is I found it interesting that it's actually being testified in front of Congress. That, to me, that just signaled like, oh, this might be, this is just... Because you just don't expect something like that as an official hearing. And it's just interesting to see where it could possibly lead to if they have a closed hearing where this Mr. Gunch actually provides hard evidence. Because from my understand, he is willing to disclose in a closed hearing, and he does know like locations where so-called spacecrafts are being held.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and another thing I also wanted to touch upon this topic, like at a later point when you discuss it a bit, is just the implications of if this is truly real and there is alien life out there, just the consequences it will have on human society.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that is kind of interesting here is that this kind of appeared out of nowhere. Like, it's always odd to me, the people that Congress decides to, call in for an interview. And in this case, they wanted to, investigate, like, UFOs. And, maybe I'm not in particular on, like, what brought this to the floor, like, why they would want to, investigate this. It might have to do with, like, budgeting concerns, or it might have to do with, like, a fallout from the spy balloon that, was from China, and just kind of floated over the United States, and they just kind of let it float until it got over the Atlantic Ocean. because of course shooting it down once it's already once it's already flown over the United States, remember, we're in 1973, and we don't have ways to transmit, like, physical data from one location to another without it actually floating all the way back to China, right? So, because that is a thing, and we're in 1973, where, none of that exists, it was completely fine, like, to shoot it down over the Atlantic Ocean instead of letting it, float along the United States. But, the whole thing is that, my thing is, it's almost like, it almost seems like it's injected into the news, right? Like, why, like, remember the Gabby Petito thing, and that was all over the airwaves, and, like...
She was the woman who was killed by her boyfriend, right? The camper lady? Camper van?
Yeah, like, they were in this, like, windowless van or something that was driving, like, from, I don't know if it was Wyoming or something, and it drove all the way to Florida, and, like, it was all over the news. And, like, the thing is those kind of things happen, like, pretty commonly. Like, it happens a lot. And I mean, when I say a lot, I don't mean, like, every day even, but, like, it happens more than once a year. And in this particular case, like, this just happened to happen, like, or, it was just, it got all this, like, national attention. You still see things pop up occasionally from it. And it almost seems like similar to that, when we had a lot of stuff going on in the news, and it just kind of seemed like a distraction that people got all into, almost like, whether it be for financial gain or, because they wanted to, they just needed something to run with in the news. I don't know. It just seemed, this kind of reminds me of that, because, why would this guy come up now, when, he's been retired, right? Yeah, former turned whistleblower, like, and, he was in for 14 years. That's kind of odd, isn't it? Like, you're in there for 14 years and you're just talking about this now? It just seems... Was
he in the Air Force for 14 years or retired for 14 years?
Well, it says, who served for 14 years as an intelligence officer in the Air Force and National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So, I don't know if well, let's see.
Well, he's retired, so I will say this. Possibly he's opening up now because he felt pressure blowing the whistle while under the Air Force. He maybe felt it would harm his career in it. So now that he's retired, he feels more open to talk about it.
I mean, that could be it. And members of both parties... So, just to read a little bit of this. Members of both parties question how Congress should go about investigating the remarkable allegations, a reflection of the increasing willingness by lawmakers to demand the executive branch be more forthcoming about the phenomena. We're going to uncover the cover-up, and I hope this is just the beginning of many more hearings and many more people coming forward about this, said Rep. Tim Burchett, a Republican from Tennessee. UAP issue is gained. I'm just kind of skimming this article a little bit to see. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Doesn't that sound like... like they're just running out of names at this point. And of course, they're going to open an office so that they can hire people and tax you more. But, or go more into debt, whichever one they want. But, has investigated roughly 800 reports of UAPs as of May. While military officials have said most cases have innocuous origins, many others remain unexplained. Lawmakers say the military knows more about the objects than it has disclosed to Congress. I mean, one thing that would be kind of interesting is, drones are a lot more common these days. So what do you think that would have anything to do with this?
I mean, I feel like a drone, there would be a lot less mystery to it. Like, you could more see that it's clearly a human-made object and easily explainable compared to what I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, Mr. Grinch is testifying as. Like it certainly could, like it can certainly increase the number of sightings in the sky, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's saying it's like innocuous, but then others remain unexplained. So like, what, unexplained could be a lot of things. Like they just say, we don't know, and like
definitely it could mean we don't know what country this came from.
Mm-hmm.
Go all the way up to alien technology.
Yeah, and also, it says most of them have innocuous origins. Many others remain unexplained. So, if that's like, let's just say 70% are, just, there's a case that's reported and it turns out to be, nothing. And then 25% are unexplained. It's like, what are the other 5%? Like, what are the explanations behind that? I'm
guessing maybe, spycraft from another country.
Yeah.
5%.
And then also in a closed hearing, like, one thing that I don't like about closed hearings is, okay, Congress gets to know, but then they don't get to, they don't have any authorization / reason to tell the public, and yet that's who they work for. So it's like, okay, he's going to disclose it in a closed hearing, but then how can Congress publicly investigate it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just reading this article a little bit more. Said in a statement that the office has not discovered. She also said the department is committed to timely and thorough reporting to Congress. Okay, whatever. Like, you just gotta ask, like, what is the follow-up that they have? And I don't know why I can't think of accountability. There we go. What accountability does she have? In addition to Grush, the panel heard testimony from Ryan Graves, a former Navy pilot who has spoken out about encountering UAPs on training missions, and David Fravor, who spotted a large object captured in the now famous Tic Tac video during a flight off the coast of California in 2004. I don't know that video. All three witnesses said current reporting systems are inadequate to investigate UAP encounters, and said a stigma still exists for pilots and officials who press for more transparency about their experiences. Graves is an F-18 pilot. Okay. Sorry. Just going through here. Okay, so here's what he says. If everyone could see the sensor and video data I witnessed, our national conversation would change. I urge us to put aside stigma and address the security and safety issue this topic represents. If UAP are foreign drones, it is an urgent national security problem. If it is something else, it's an issue for science. In either case, unidentified objects are a concern for flight safety. The American people deserve to know what is happening in our skies. It is long overdue. I just don't know how many people would care.
Like, a lot of people took the hearing as a joke. Mainly because... What was his name? How do you pronounce his last name again? I'm sorry.
I think it's Grush. There's no N in it.
Grush.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that seemed to be the big criticism, because Grush couldn't bring out, like, hard evidence because it's all classified information. He would get thrown in the slammer because of it, and he has to go through a closed hearing because of that. Like, a lot of the public seem to take it as just one big joke and as distraction politics.
Yeah, definitely. But I
know you made a comparison between the Gabby case and this, why the news picked it up, but I mean, I feel it's a bit different because something like this, I feel like, is like, if there are aliens out there and they visited Earth and we have their spacecraft captured bodies, like, that would be the highest order of news, really, on a global scale, politically as well, because if that's true and the public does find out, it could definitely shake things up in human society. Like, a lot of beliefs I feel will be shattered in terms of religion and just in general. I think a lot of people would have just some sort of existential crisis. They found out that information.
I mean, I agree with that. Because I think that it would just be a huge discovery and something that's, I can actually use the term unprecedented in this type of situation because it is fitting. Pearl says, hard, I got some hard evidence here for you, Starlight. There you go.
Thank you, Pearl. I am eagerly awaiting that hard evidence here.
Anyway, but, I mean, what do I think? I think there would be some capture. It'd be interesting to see how governments respond. I guess it would depend on which, first of all, where the spacecraft appeared in the world. I mean, and, if it landed, if it did anything while it was here. I think it would change quite a bit of, and of course, what technology was on it, what, different types of, how they talked, if at all communicated, if they were peaceful, not peaceful.
Mr. Grush has alleged that they have communicated the government and extraterrestrials. That's what he, I believe, part of what he testified.
Yeah.
And apparently also, and according to his testimony, people have been harmed by extraterrestrials. And by government officials as well, according to his testimony.
Mm-hmm. Wednesday's hearing took place amid a growing willingness by lawmakers to demand the military and intelligence agency release. Got it. Okay. Well then what I would say is we're not going to be able to know anything because they're going to do it behind closed doors. And
you never know. You never know. If Biden gets wind of it, he could declassify information.
I don't think Biden would ever do that. Biden isn't exactly known for his transparency, but welcome, Chewy. How you doing? Okay, Pearl has submitted a question. Are you ready?
Can I make one more point?
Do it.
For the question. I feel like the end result is this is all confirmed true. I could see a total breakdown of society. I could just see like a mass uprising happening, particularly in this country, because if there are aliens out there, I think people would realize that maybe life is not all that special, and they'd be more willing to take up arms against the government because of the worsening economic situation. And they see other civilizations out there that are far more technologically advanced while they're slaving away at pretty much a dead-end job. I think it would rile a lot of people up if it was confirmed to be true. And I think that's why a lot of world governments, if it is real, if his testimony is true, is why they try to cover it up and conceal it.
I think, but that would also depend on the message and the overall filter that the government would be putting on that, right? Because if the government and, most governments in the world were already communicating with them, then they're going to always put it through a filter of what they want people to know and what they don't. So it would depend on, I guess, if the aliens could communicate with, humans on a basis without alerting, or with also alerting others, because even though Grush is saying that they have come and communicated with people and even harmed them in some case, that would also say, we'd also have to say that they did that without making too much of a scene, obviously, and or the government or governments or something else has covered it up. So I guess it would depend on the messaging that they bring, because it's very possible that they don't know any communication or anything, where they can't really talk to people on an individual basis, but also, if there would be a filter, because if they're going to communicate through the government and the government releases that information, then it could be much different than what they would actually want to communicate.
Question for you: if everything did end up being confirmed, would it change any of your personal beliefs?
Not really, no. Because I wouldn't even... The thing is like, in a completely peaceful type of situation, like where it was confirmed, and it was completely peaceful, I'm not even sure I would trust that information. You know what I mean? Like, the information from the news sources that I'd be hearing it from. So that would be something that probably wouldn't do anything for me. Obviously, if it was in a destructive manner or something like that, where there was a war or they were trying to invade or something, then yeah, but that would change my beliefs. But that would be because they're kind of required to change. Here's Pearl's question. Do you think the reason Mitch McConnell froze mid-speech was because he saw alien hiding in the crowd?
Do you want to answer first?
Yes.
It's your show.
Please.
I'll let you answer.
Please answer first.
Who, me or you?
You.
Oh, no. You. It's your show, Casper. You go first. You keep the crowd happy.
I think the reason that Mitch McConnell froze was because, he is probably pumped up with the same thing that Biden is pumped up with every day to go on stage. Like, that is the reason I think McConnell froze. Like,
you got some of that Hunter powder?
Yeah,
in the house?
Exactly. I think that's what happened.
I want to kind of go and maybe on a little mini topic because of this question. How would you feel about the proposal, being there is a arbitrary minimum age to hold office for Congress, senator, president? How would you feel about like a maximum age if that's the case? Like, once you start retirement age, you're barred from office. How would you feel about a proposal like that? And do you in general feel like older people in their 80s are an issue in the government?
Well, my thing is, and by the way, welcome, Mog. Mog says, aliens are out there. There are too many planets out there for us to be the only rock with it. With life, I'm guessing, is what he's trying to say. Welcome, Mog.
I'm kind of sad, Mog. Well, I wish I could be abducted by aliens if they're out there. Like, why don't I get to have that fun, get to have that experience?
Well, all you have to do is communicate with them, and then you can. To answer your question about age, so first of all, I think that the age for Congress, there shouldn't really be any age requirements at all. The reason being is because, I would say, I guess, because the only parameter to sign a contract or, to have an agreement in place would be to be a legal adult. So I guess you would need that age requirement. But the thing is the representation of people in a region is, well, okay, let me rephrase this. The average representation is set about 750 or 700,000, I believe, residents for someone in one area to represent, which is, just pretty much unmanageable, right? Like, you cannot listen to that many voices, even in a deeply, blue or red or, whatever. Like, there are just too many people that you can't really represent that in any effective way at all if you want to pretend that you're listening to a lot of people. So what I would say is, for the House of Representatives specifically, that should be able to be anyone. Like, so no maximum age, no minimum age, no, anything, anything. Now, the Senate was originally designed to have representatives selected by the two senators from each state were selected by a committee, and they would represent the state, and it was designed originally to try to be less biased and political, because a state would have it truly represent them, rather than like people that vote, because people that vote are going to have their own motives, but people that are kind of representing a state, they're selected, and therefore they're not necessarily accountable to the people. And in that case, there probably should be like age requirements, because now we've kind of vote for the senators, whereas before they were selected, so it didn't matter that they were necessarily doing what the people wanted. And so, in my opinion, it should revert back to a system like that, and there should be many requirements on those people as far as cognitive ability. I don't know if age necessarily has to be one, but if it was, then yeah, there should be a minimum and a maximum. And but I would say mostly cognitive ability and background check, things like that. What about yourself?
Generally, I believe, like, I would be happy if there were no... this is for all branches of government, by the way. I would be happy if there were a system where there was no maximum. And by minimum age, I mean legal adult. Because right now, Congress is 25, Senate's 30, President's 35. I'd be happy in a system where it was 18 and then no max limit. Or if you're going to have those minimum age limits, have a maximum as well, and have the maximum just be retirement age, because there is cognitive decline as you get older. That's just a fact. And really, at that point, you're kind of well, I can't really say you become out of touch, because generally politicians in general are just going to be out of touch no matter what the age, because generally politicians are going to be more of a upper class sort of people already out of touch. But pretty much what I just asked were just logical consistency, because that right now there's no logical consistency having 35 be the minimum and no maximum. There's no logic in that.
Yeah.
And I know people out there will say, well, I don't want an 18-year-old be a president. But the thing is, if you could run for president at 18, not many 18-year-olds would ever be elected president, because they're at a major disadvantage compared to other politicians. They're not going to have a lot of experience managing a campaign, working up a crowd. They just don't have the experience. So it's kind of like it's self-regulatory. Even at 18, you're going to tend to have older adults.
Right. Okay. In the chat, welcome Infamous. How you doing today? Would you date a dude in his 80s? When I'm 80, maybe.
What if you had a lot of money?
No. I've been offered that before, so...
Really?
Yeah.
Were they... How old were they? Were they actually in their 80s?
I think they are actually... It was when I was, like, in my younger 20s, and he was in his 60s. So, yeah. Caster was abducted by aliens. The aliens were scared by how quickly he ran to the probe machine. Thanks, Monk. Thanks for disclosing that to everybody. Pearl says, Starlight, you are dodging my question. Did he or did he not see an alien in the crowd?
I can't disclose that, Pearl. I can't.
So he knows.
I'd have to do a closed meeting with Caster about
closed meeting.
Closed stream.
And we'll let you know the results of that. Okay. Question from Mog. Do you or Starlight think that the fact we keep electing 70, 80, and 90-year-olds is just because of the fear of change? No. I think that, people like Nancy Pelosi just get in and have so much money and have so much, influence that nobody really will challenge them. It's the same for people like Mitch McConnell. It's the same for people like, who was that? Dianne Feinstein. They just have so much money and clout that to primary somebody like that would just cost endless amounts of money, and it might get you nothing in the end, and you have to do a lot of fundraising, and you have to attack them from their political affiliation. So what we would say is like kind of like AOC did to Jim Crawley, like when one advantage she had was that he didn't really run a campaign at all, right? And she actually challenged him. She was like, no, and she was able to raise money and kind of beat him. But for someone in, the Bay Area to do that, so like Nancy Pelosi, she has the money and she has the clout, and if she were toppled, it would probably bring the wrath of the media down on them as well, because she's a friend of the media. So I think that's part of it. And, because it's just like people won't challenge certain people in certain districts. And they'll just continue to run for re-election because they, get some power and probably get some, money out of it. That's kind of what I believe. How about you, Starlight?
It's also for the younger people in general, like younger Democrats, like they kind of want to change the status quo as well, and the Democratic Party's not going to want that either. So they're not going to give them a ton of support if they're running up against a dinosaur like Nancy Pelosi, for instance. And people aren't necessarily afraid of change either, because Donald Trump was a major change in office, and a lot of people were eager and ecstatic to vote for him. So it really comes down to what Caster said. A lot of the people in politics now that are in their 80s, they just got in early and they just never let go of power.
Yeah.
Who was that one? I find this funny. Who was that one Supreme Court justice? What was her name? She was in her 80s and
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I find it funny. She was a staunch supporter of women's rights, and she had to absolutely just hold on to her power because she arrogantly wanted to retire under a female president, and look what happened because of it.
Yep. Just imagine how much, if she was still alive, Joe Biden already probably, has to fear Kamala walking around, and then he'd have to fear Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Also wanting to retire under a female president. Just imagine that. We'll get to more questions in a little bit, because we've got some more, and we got some more chat. We'll get some more questions, but I want to get to the second article about the aliens, because this is kind of what the media is going with. The title of this article: the UFO congressional hearing was insulting to U.S. employees, a top Pentagon official says.
What?
What?
I'm sorry, I was just baffled. I was baffled by the title.
A top Pentagon official has attacked this week's widely watched congressional hearing on UFOs, calling the claims insulting to employees who are investigating in sightings, and accusing a key witness of not cooperating with the official U.S. government investigation. Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's letter Doesn't he sound like a pleasant person? Published on his personal LinkedIn page, because, of course, you have to put everything on social media. You have to put your dinner on social media. You have to put, what you did last night, how you slept, the thread count of your bed sheets. You have to put it all on social media because, that's what you do these days. And circulated Friday across social media, of course, criticizes much of the testimony from a retired Air Force intelligence officer that energized believers in extraterrestrial life and produced headlines around the world. Retired Air Force Major Grush testified Wednesday that the U.S. had concealed... Okay, it's going to go into that. What is this guy saying? That's what we're looking for. Kirkpatrick... Oh, wait. A career intelligence... Kirkpatrick... Okay, this is just saying who he is. He writes in part, I cannot let yesterday's hearing pass without sharing how insulting it was to the officers of the Department of Defense and intelligence community who chose to join AARO, which is that agency I talked about earlier, many with not unreasonable anxieties about the career risks this would entail. They are true seekers, as am I, Kirkpatrick said, but you certainly would not get that impression from yesterday's hearing. In a separate statement, Pentagon spokesperson Sue Goff denied other allegations made by Grush and other witnesses before a House Oversight subcommittee. The Pentagon has no information that any individual has been harmed or killed as a result of providing information about UFO objects, Goff said, nor has the Pentagon discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. But I mean, of course she's going to say that. Like, what?
Exactly. I mean, she's a government spokesperson, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, like, what is she going to be like? Oh, yeah, that...
Oh, he's totally right. Yep.
Lots of people have been harmed and killed. Here's a list. Like, are you really going to say that? Like, it's... This is ridiculous. I don't know. Anyway.
It just seems like just a bad attempt at damage control, really.
Yeah. So, but this letter is really important because, you only put important things on LinkedIn, right? Like, I feel that's what you do.
Well, that's LinkedIn's like the Facebook of the business people. So, of course, everything's on there is important.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought, too. So, yeah. Okay, so here's one thing she said that's somewhat interesting. Yet, contrary to assertions made in the hearing, the central source of those allegations has refused to speak with AARO. He did not explicitly name Grush, who alleged he faced retaliation, declined to answer when a congressman asked him if anyone had been murdered to hide information about UFOs.
Why would he want to speak to that organization?
Yeah, I mean, that's the organization that was built to investigate this. So he would... I mean, what is he going to get from them? What... He's going to probably get the same that the public would get, which is, circle back around Jen Psaki type of answers. Or am I wrong?
No, you get nothing from it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any...
It's just... I don't know.
Ridiculous article.
It is ridiculous. Just in the fact that they decided to say that the person who's supposed to deny it has denied it. Okay.
I mean, they could have done, if they want to do damage, they could have done a better job and just denied the claim. I mean, it's going to be obvious anyway, just deny the claims and just personally attack Gunch.
Yeah,
this ridiculous stone theory about what an insult it was to the employees. Why didn't he come speak to us about it? It's just ridiculous.
Well, that's the only thing that speaks to the American public these days is outrage, right? Like, you have to be outraged in order to show how how disapproving you are of something. So, I mean, what do you do when you have something really important and you need it to get out, right? Well, you post it on Twitter, of course, because Twitter is where the most intellectual thoughts come. And I guess these days it's not called Twitter anymore, is it? Now it's called X or something like that. And I could care less. To me, changing it to the word X or letter X.
It's just it's just a bad decision. it's.
Oh, I'm thrilled with the decision. Now I hope it dies, and Threads dies, and everything else that is in that entire.
Well,
realm.
hasn't Twitter in general been going down the toilet?
I think so, but
I don't follow too much, but I've heard bits and pieces. I've heard Elon's limiting the amount of posts you can view now, and I believe right now, I don't think you can actually scroll through Twitter without making an account.
Yeah, I actually had a link to something recently, and I don't have an account there, and I was trying to view. I don't know what I was trying to do. I was trying to view a video or something that was on there, and it was like, oh, you can't see this unless you sign in. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, because sometimes I would very occasionally go on Twitter to look at something specific. Now I can't do that anymore, and I'm not going to make an account.
Yeah,
but when I said it was bad, it's bad in the perspective of if you want to run a successful business, because it's why would you change up branding like that when Twitter's a household name? It's just a horrible decision.
No, I agree, and he did it right at. And I wonder, if behind the scenes, because Meta launched Threads, which is basically a Twitter copycat, and they're trying to get people to use that. And I just kind of wonder if it was almost like Elon's kind of like, I'm done with this. Mark Zuckerberg, you try to.
Oh, I don't think Elon Musk ever really wanted Twitter to begin with. I think didn't he pretty much get forced into buying it?
Well, he wanted it, and then they settled on something, and then he kind of tried to back out, and he wasn't allowed to back out at that point because he had already begun the transaction essentially, and so then he was just like, okay, I'll do it, and that's kind of my basic understanding of it.
I bet he freaking regrets ever getting involved.
Well,
because the amount of stocks he had to liquidate, what he had to pay for it, all for a site that has only barely ever turned a profit in like a couple years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like sites like this, they're just not profitable.
Right.
To give up what he did to purchase it is just mad.
Well, the other funny thing is the fact that all of these conservatives and quote unquote right leaning people were cheering and all happy because Twitter's back and it's gonna allow free speech again and all this other stuff, and then
not when there's advertisers involved.
All right, and it's he still censors Alex Jones. There's still a bunch of people that are banned. It just tells you okay, just because your filter is not as strict doesn't mean that there's not a filter there. If you want a free speech playground, then you gotta go to an actual free speech playground, which is there are a few sites, and that's not one of them. So welcome, Tolstoy. Hope you're doing well. Your pictures are way too small. I can make them bigger, but you don't need to see us.
Yeah, this daylight savings lighting is horrible.
Yeah, I'm
as orange as Donald Trump right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're gonna get to him later. So,
I was gonna buy a new lighting setup, but then I stopped streaming for a while, so never got around to it until I started streaming again. So,
yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's get to a little bit of chat and a question, because Pearl has a cheeky question for us again. People were freaked out by Kennedy's youth, Mug says. Yeah, definitely. I personally believe Mitch McConnell froze because he gambled on a fart and lost. Okay.
To be fair, the Kennedy, like that was, I mean, things have changed since then.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, nowadays, if someone of JFK age ran, it wouldn't be seen as a big deal.
I think DeSantis is around the same age, right?
I think he's like 44, right?
Yeah, he's in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he's a little bit older, but still, not.
Like I personally, I think the age thing like has died out by now. Especially like I think Obama was kind of like the last hoorah over age.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Pearl says you're hooked up to a contraption from the Saw movies, and the only way you can survive is if Mitch McConnell or Joe Biden coherently read four paragraphs without stumbling over words or freezing. Who are you picking and why? McConnell.
I couldn't hear the start of the question. I'm hooked up to a what machine?
Saw, like one of the crazy Saw movie machines, like where you die a horrible death unless you like dig out your eye or whatever, like that kind of thing.
I mean, I get to pick what they read.
No, you have to pick one of the two to read.
Okay, and so whatever they're reading is going to be random?
Yeah. Well, yeah, random 4 paragraphs.
I'll go with Joe Biden. I personally have faith in Joe Biden, bro. He has never let me down. He will not let me down in that instance.
Well, he'll also
knowing my luck, all he has to read to me are 4 paragraphs of Cat in the Hat. There's no possible way. There's like 2 words on each page. He can't stumble over that.
Well, Joe Biden will also read the punctuation and the filler. So, like he'll read like the Cat in the Hat. Turn the page, period. He'll read everything for you. So there you go. It's fine, just coming by a bit, but I'm also libertarian, so I guess it's not going to be too interesting of a conversation because I can't really troll you guys. Do you have any contentious beliefs? What do you mean contentious? I'm sure we do, but all right. Here's the headline from Yahoo News.
I don't think we're really trollable in general either.
Definitely not Starlight. I'm a little bit more. I'm probably slightly trollable, but Starlight's not. I've seen some people in his audience. I'm like, wow, he has a lot of patience. Coronavirus is back, but how worried should you be?
Is this even like a real article? Like, because here's the thing. Like, I have seen many articles trying to cause fear and panic over COVID, like every single year at this point, every single month.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it just seems like another nothing burger article.
Well, it just seems like a fear-mongering article, Oh my gosh, people are being hospitalized again. Oh gosh, like that's kind of my general sense from it. For instance, they, capped this tweet that says, like from Laura Myers, COVID is suddenly everywhere simultaneously, but we're not allowed to acknowledge it's happening or take any meaningful action. What is meaningful
what more
action?
meaningful action do you want to take?
It's like, what is...
nearly 4 years at this point.
I know, it's like, what meaningful action? Like, what, are we all supposed to hide in our homes again? Are we all supposed
I've heard sentiments like that.
Yeah.
I've heard some people say they're never going to stop wearing a mask. Wasn't real. I mean, and also the thing is here, if COVID is becoming a threat again, at this point you have to just stop living in fear over it. like it's clear if it really is a threat again, then it's just going to be like a like influenza where it's just there's a hot streaks of it. It's just just gotta move on.
It's so funny. So I have this, or I go and play poker, and there's this guy that plays in the, casino, and it's so hilarious because when I get there early, but the game doesn't start for about half hour or so after I get there. So I go and sit in the cafe area. And behind me, or behind the cafe area, I should say, there is a smoking area. So, like, people go outside and they smoke. And it's so funny because there's this guy that walks by me, like, 2 times at least. Like I said, I'm there for about a half hour. He walks by 2 times and goes to the smoking area, and he's double masked with the N95 masks, right? He's double masked, and I'm like, so you can't you can't risk getting COVID, but you can smoke as many cigarettes as you want. Makes a lot of sense, I see. Like, it's just this fear-mongering stuff of, like, we have to bring COVID back, we have to bring some kind of, communicable disease back. And, everybody has to mask and stay inside and do everything is, to me, just the most disingenuous thing. And it's always, it's always the same. It's just always trying to get people to, shelter up again.
And at this point, that tactic has diminishing returns at this point, because even a lot of people who adhered to that in 2020, they're going to be, like I said, after nearly 4 years, they're going to be burnt out about hearing their incoming doom from it and just not care anymore. Like, it's only going to be a very small minority who would even mask up and shelter anymore.
Right. Tolstoy, I have no idea, because it would depend on what you agree with and disagree with. I mean, I would not vote for Joe, what's-her-face, who ran in 2020, but I did vote for Gary Johnson in 2016.
Anyone out there remember Jill Stein from 2016?
Well, she was in a couple elections, wasn't she? I think.
I mean, I'd known her from 2016. That's when I'm not familiar with her prior to that. Because I just remember, because people on the right, I remember they actually liked Jill Stein. They called her the base plant lady. And then she did something, I think, against Trump, and then people on the right started hating her.
Oh, yeah. She was pretty vocal against Trump, I think. And then, apparently, because you can't criticize Trump. Which, that might be an interesting topic to cover. I don't think we'll get a chance to do it tonight, but, Hey, Arima, how you doing? Infamous says, just put us in a recession and be done with it already. Done with the lifetime events. Oh, well, getting to a little part of this article, it's my favorite. It's my favorite part.
I mean, what does even being in a recession truly mean? Because our economy has been going down the toilet for decades anyway, recession or not.
Well, remember they saw, when we actually were in a recession, and then they were like, well, technically it's a recession, but it's not really a recession. It's like, because the definition of recession had been reached, like, two quarters of negative growth, and then they said, but that's not really a recession.
I mean, just like two negative 2 quarters of growth. I mean, that's just like this whole recession stuff. It's just word games.
Yeah. Hang on. What?
Because I mean, the thing is, like, you can't keep positive growth going forever anyway. It's not possible because you're gonna have a birth decline and a population decline, and demand for things is gonna go down. Growth is gonna go down. That's natural.
Yeah. So here's one of my favorite parts of this article. Masking continues to be an easy means of protection, especially when traveling or gathering in crowded settings like concert venues or sports arenas. And Because
if you're that concerned, then don't go to the event.
maybe you just don't go, or maybe you don't travel. I mean, that's kind of what I've been saying since 2020. But, but then they say this. And many people have neglected to update their vaccines, meaning that they lack some protection from the ever-evolving disease. The latest spike could be driven in part by an Omicron subvariant known as Arcturus. According to the CDC, only 17% of the American population has received the bivalent booster introduced last fall. So, I don't know what
booster. What booster are we on now?
I don't know. How do we know? Like, how
I think we might be. You had your first 2 shots, and then I think we're on the 3rd booster after those 2. I think maybe.
Is that what we're on now? Like,
I think.
Do you just to do this? Do you just go to Walgreens every day and like ask them like, are there any new boosters? Like, or do you get on a mailer of some sort where they like tell you like, oh, by the way, come in, get your booster. There's a new subvariant going around, and you might get infected anyway, and you might spread it because the booster doesn't really do anything besides symptom mitigate.
And the best part is right now, I don't believe the government is covering the cost of the boosters or vaccines anymore.
Well, that's actually a good decision if that's the case.
But I mean, it sucks the money out of people's pockets, though. Like, so it's bad. It's bad for the people.
Well, it sucks the money out of their pockets in theory, anyway. But the government just prints money, so I mean, the thing is that it's just getting ridiculous. It really is a meme at this point. It really is.
I wish I could find that one video again. I still think about it every time I hear about COVID stuff, about some grandpa getting arrested during Thanksgiving at their house for having too many people in it.
Oh, there was a few of those. I mean, well...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cases, like Australia as well. If you were returned to Australia, you were forced to quarantine into like some hotel and pay out of your pocket. And it's like, I'm surprised how many... I'm surprised. Like, I believe the grandpa thing I was talking about it came out of Canada, but I'm surprised how many people in Australia just take it, because it's like, for me, it's my birthright to enter America whenever I please or desire. I'm just surprised Australians are just like, well, it's for the good of everything. We have to do this. It's just...
I don't know. I actually have been in a conversation with an Australian I've been talking to, so I'll have to ask him, because he lives in Melbourne. I don't know how they actually like take that, but maybe there's just a different sentiment there.
It's crazy too, because you're forced to pay for it. Something the government's mandating, all coming out of your pocket.
Don't worry though, you'll get free healthcare.
And it's like, what if the person can't afford it, and people bring that up, and people counter, oh, well, they could afford to travel. But, I mean, here's the thing about travel. You can save up your money and get just enough money to go to your dream vacation, and when you get back, you don't have any more money to burn, like, for a month, $3,000. You don't have that money to burn anymore.
Right.
You just had it allocated for vacation. It's completely ridiculous. Like, if that happened here, there would hardly be any compliance. Like, I would just leave that hotel and never look back if that happened in America. Like, I would just peel off in the Uber with a middle finger out the sunroof.
Yeah. Like, they send you to, like, a Holiday Inn or something, like, just, you're right outside, like, Disney, but you can't actually go in. You just sit there and look out the window. Like... Not that you'd want to go in Disney anyway, but...
Oh, God.
Maybe some people that would.
I don't understand... Oh, now you're talking about that. I don't understand how theme parks like that are so popular.
Well, they're declining.
Like, they are awful. Like, it was... Like, today, it was 99 degrees outside today. And with very high humidity. I could not imagine staying outside hours at that for an amusement park.
I went... the funny thing is I... was just walking outside today, and I'm in Tampa, I walked outside and I had broken down boxes, and I was just putting them in my car, and they're like awkward, and I was just wanting to drive them up front to the compactor, and like I was just like drenched in sweat because of that, and not because they were heavy or because I was struggling with them or anything, but just because it was that humid and hot out today. And I think about, like, why would I want to go out to a theme park and do this? Like, why would I want to walk around, stand in line for like an hour and a half, to go on a
overpriced food. Don't forget overpriced food and drinks.
Yeah,
get you on that. Yeah,
to go on a 3-minute ride, and not to mention, theme parks. For us as adults, like, okay, like we wouldn't be wandering around like. We would be, like, if you and I were to go to a theme park, for instance, like, we would be doing the things that we want to do, right? Like, we would be, going to the things that we would want. Like, imagine going with kids, and they're hot and nasty and sweaty. Like, just imagine, like, that.
That would be a form of torture.
Oh my gosh! And then,
like, imagine, like, you have nephews, right?
Yeah, two nephews and a niece, yeah.
Like, imagine, okay, you have two nephews and me. Imagine if their parents offloaded them on you to take them to Disney.
Oh my gosh. Well, now, I mean, if you said that 10 years ago, because now they're, like, pretty much grown. But yeah, like 10 years ago, and it was in this, I would just be like, actually, kids, we're going to the arcade. Just tell your mom that we went to Disney, because we're going to go sit in an air-conditioned arcade. It's not going to be fun, and it's not going to be fun at Disney. I'll buy you...
They probably had more fun at an arcade, to be honest.
Yeah. And I'll be like, I'll buy you both, like, what probably cost me at least $200 or $300 each for, I'd be like, I'll just buy you a PlayStation 4 or some video games or something.
I remember, like, I went to a field trip to SeaWorld as a kid, and guess what? Guess what a major rule and stipulation was?
What is it?
No rides allowed.
SeaWorld?
Like, it's like, it was a horrible field trip. It was so boring.
Yeah, that would be. Like, I mean, that would be the only thing that would, like, at least you would get that. But nope, now you have to sit and watch Shamu. And like, as a kid, like, okay, Shamu would probably be pretty interesting as an adult, like, to say. But, like, as a kid, I don't care about that. Like,
I don't know what it is about schools and sucking every joy they can out of field trips. Because another time we went to the movies, and another rule was no candy allowed.
Yeah, that's terrible for kids. And the thing is public school. Well, we all know how I feel about public schools. All right.
You can. Okay, good. Okay, yeah. Go on another topic. Also, I'll have like 20 freaking stories about school field trips to tell you.
All right. In Florida's local malaria outbreak, forgotten bite led to surprise hospitalization. I mean, this story isn't really the important part. The fact is that malaria is in Sarasota, basically. So,
better than us, Caster.
Sarasota's not too far from me.
Well, I mean, I think it's the same distance from both of us.
Yeah, I guess you're not too far from it either, because you're...
I think it's like an hour and a half away from me.
Yeah, it's about that from me, too. But yeah, this is like the first year where there's been, more than like, more cases than you can count on one hand. Because you always have a few, and usually they're people that go out of state, out of the country, and come back and, they were bitten by a mosquito with malaria, or, they caught it from someone else. But now what they're concerned about is that there's enough cases where, like, a mosquito, like uninfected mosquitoes could, like, bite someone, even though mosquitoes don't really bite, and then, like, transfer it to another person. Like, so they're starting to worry about that kind of a thing. Do you think that this is cause for any concern?
I mean, a case like this, it does ring a little alarm bells in my head because it's not usual. Like a malaria has been pretty much unheard of in Florida for a very long time. Like I've lived here all my life, and in those nearly 30 years, malaria has never been a concern here until now. So it is definitely a bit of a pickle in my opinion.
Yeah. This is saying Heath is one of the 8 known people in recent months who have contracted malaria in the U.S. after being bitten by a local mosquito rather than while traveling abroad. The cases comprise the nation's first locally transmitted outbreak in 20 years. Last time this occurred was in 2003 when 8 people tested positive for malaria in Palm Beach.
I wonder how easy it would be in terms of bioterrorism to bring malaria over to the United States. Because someone with malicious intentions, I feel like they could potentially smuggle in malaria-infected mosquitoes or eggs into the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one thing.
Well, not eggs. I mean, infected, because the eggs won't be infected, but mosquitoes will be.
Like the insects themselves. But the interesting thing about that is that you know, the only way to get rid of the infected insects really is just to kind of use a bunch of chemicals and or burn the affected areas. And I mean, it would be who knows.
I mean, it would be hard to get rid of if it got to a point where a very large portion of mosquito population ends up with a malaria. Right.
And it would also, it would always start in one area. I mean, who knows? This could be the case here. We don't know, how these mosquitoes got infected. But yeah, it could be a thing, definitely. But yeah, it's a little bit concerning because it's close to us.
I wonder how fatal is malaria?
It has a pretty low fatality rate. It is more fatal in children.
Is there any long-term complications from said disease?
I am not aware of any, but it doesn't mean that.
Because I know with Zika, it affected mothers with giving birth to their children.
You bigot, you meant to say birthing persons giving.
I think I need to be paddled now, Caster. I think I'm a bad man. I need to be punished now, Caster.
Oh my gosh, yes. We can't refer to women as women. We don't even know what a woman is. Oh man. But
now it's when you see, because I've never had mosquitoes in the house until now, and so now, because before I just ignore them, but now I have to probably try to get them out of here.
What do you mean mosquitoes? In your
in the house?
Oh, they're actually in your place?
Yeah, it's been a recent thing.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been bit. I've been bitten a couple times in the past couple weeks, but. Because usually, like I said, I'm not gonna get bothered to remove them from the house, because before in America they typically carried no disease, it's not worth my time. But now that they have malaria, it's possibly it's well, now I might have to actually get rid of them.
Do you have your do you keep your windows open and no screen or something?
No, they just find their way in somehow. It's kind of the condo was built in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a bit older. There's insects just get in.
Okay. Yeah.
Ants come in sometimes through the wall, through an outlet sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's an old building. There's just holes in places that you don't really see. They just find their way in.
Yeah. Catch up with the chat a little bit.
Have you had any ant problems lately?
I haven't had ant problem. Actually, the last time I lived in Tampa was the last time I had ant problems. I haven't had any ant problems here.
I've been having them. Never had ant problems for years. All of a sudden, They're just here, and they're a menace. Like you never see them. You never see them unless they. Well, my ants like to get in the trash can. That's what they like to do.
Oh,
They're very irritating.
no, for whatever reason, I had like a bunch of ants that were around the computer desk. That when I lived in the other place in Tampa, and then I never had them in Gainesville, and I haven't had them here yet. But hopefully I don't get them. But
Yeah, like if I like buy donuts or something, like I have to like buy like cinnamon roll, any sort of sweets, like I had to keep them in the oven.
Ugh.
Because one time I left the cinnamon bun out, like in a like a cardboard container. Ants took it.
I was about to say you had an ant farm after that.
Yep, it was like.
Yeah. I remember. Actually, the funny thing is somehow my car got infested with them. I don't know how to get them out of the car. So that's my Chrysler, and.
It's bizarre too, because like I don't know why they hang around. Like, because I keep a very clean house. Like I don't leave like food crumbs anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just you think they just go away eventually, but nope, they're.
All right. So catching up with the chat a little bit.
Oh, I bet Mog finds it hilarious. I bet he finds it hilarious.
The variants are going to start being named after fraternities and sororities. Subvariant Alpha Theta Pi. Yeah, basically. I mean, we can just name them. Let's name after presidents. We can start doing that.
The Biden variant.
We'll have the Biden variant pretty soon. The Trump variant. Like, which one's more deadly? We'll find out. Mog says all it probably is effing with one or two DNA strains and weaponized malaria. We are debating what women are, and we are worried about aliens invading. Aliens don't want anything to do with the meth-addicted trailer park planet. Just saying. Well, I mean, there's a lot of this planet, there's a lot of this planet that's pretty cool to look at. Like, have you ever seen, like, the big cities in, like, China? They look pretty futuristic. They're actually pretty interesting to see if you haven't seen them.
Oceans could be interesting too. Like an alien world, it might not have any above ground water.
Yeah. All right. It's not worth it. Jacksonville teacher resigns over new African American history standards. So this is
coming out of Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, yeah.
What's your favorite town?
Well, Jacksonville. Tell me if you would agree. It's probably like the biggest city in Florida, but that has like a more conservative population.
I actually don't know too much about Jacksonville. Like I was born there, but that's the end of it.
And, well, here's the thing about Jacksonville. For those that, don't know. It's actually the biggest, by area, city in the United States. And it's just like this sprawling city that, has all these different, sub-areas and everything. Now, as far as population, it's not that huge, like, obviously. It's a big city, but it's not, it's certainly no New York or even Miami, but it's a massive area, and every time I've been there, like a lot of people from the area don't really like it. It's definitely not my favorite city, and most people don't go to when they visit Florida, they'll visit Tampa or they'll visit Orlando or they'll visit Miami, but they. You don't hear of many people visiting Jacksonville. It's definitely a kind of like a working city. The beaches are not very nice. It doesn't scream Florida like, what you would traditionally think of it.
I feel like if people are visiting Florida, they want the beaches, really. That's their main concern. Like the reason people go to Orlando is just for the amusement parks.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't
Like
realize.
If Orlando didn't have amusement parks, no one would vacation there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is like Orlando. A lot of people don't realize, but Orlando is like dead center in the state. Like it's not close. I mean, in Florida, you're pretty much never more than an hour away from the beach. But if you go to Orlando, like it's center. Like you don't go to
Yeah,
Orlando.
that's about the one exception.
Yeah, you don't go to Orlando for the beaches. Tampa, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Destin, Pensacola, all those you have, nice beaches. But Jacksonville also has beaches. They're just not very nice. And
what are they? Are they what are they like? Are they really rocky?
yeah, some of them are. I remember, I haven't been to one of the beaches in a long time, but some of them are kind of rocky. Like they're they're not comfortable to visit. Like they kind of have a lot of pebbles and whatnot. And of course, most people want to walk around the beach, barefoot. And if you're going to do that, you don't want to be stepping on rocks everywhere. But the other thing is some of the more established beaches were just not very clean. Just litter, and I remember when I went there, like there were a couple jellyfish that were washed up, and there was nothing around them. Like they were just on the beach, and people would just kind of have to walk around them or whatever, and nobody cleaned them up. And they were there for about an hour, and then we left. But that's what I remember. And just talking to locals, like this last time that I went up there, it doesn't sound like much has changed. So
Yeah, it seems like
go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, because you were talking about jellyfish, I feel like it seems on the east coast of Florida, there's a lot of jellyfish there compared to the west coast. That's just my observations, because I remember in Palm Beach, I remember as a kid there, the beach was littered just with Portuguese man o' wars, absolutely littered with them.
Yeah.
You just don't see as many jellyfish here on the west coast. Like I said in my observations of being on the different coasts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this a little bit because it's an interesting story. So, a local pastor, community activist, and educator has announced resigning from his teaching job at Ribault Middle School. His reason? Florida's new standards for teaching African American history. Pastor Reginald Gundy said he began his teaching career decades ago after retiring from the military. He decided to return to the profession last year. Gundy said that the state's new African American history standards, which have faced criticism for the incorporation of instruction on how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit, sealed his decision to leave. This last piece, it's not worth it, he said. I'd rather be out here to stand up and fight back against it. In his resignation letter, Gundy argued the black history of slavery in America is no less than a Holocaust. How do you benefit from being whipped, harmed, cut, killed, burned, he said. So, I guess what they're saying, or what this guy is saying is, he's referring to a comment from the education board, which, they quoted in here and said that there were things that were beneficial for their personal benefit, developing skills. It's probably not the best way to put it. I would say, there really is no good way to put it. But just to say, history should be taught objectively. Now, I'm just not a fan of public schools in general, and I don't think they should exist. But what I would say to this is, if you are going to have them, then everything needs to be taught objectively. And there should be no... you should just lay out the history of what happened, right? And have no editorializing. And people, I think, I think the way that they framed this, or, you know, the way that they said this was editorializing themselves while trying to remain neutral. How do you think about that?
It's a very touchy subject, slavery. Like you said, I don't think there's a really good way to put it, because like any way you try to word it, there's going to be backlash against it. Like I will say I feel like slavery isn't objectively taught how I was in school, because it leaves out like just a lot of facts of it, like how like a lot of the slaves America acquired, they weren't captured, they were sold by other African leaders. They were already slaves in their own country. And
Right.
just education makes it seem like, you know, the white man went over and just started kidnapping everyone.
Right. Well, first of all, part of what I think, you know, when you make that statement that says, you know, how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Okay, like even if we support that argument and say that it's true, right? That doesn't get handed down, or at least it hasn't really been handed down to, you know, most people today, because the skills that they acquired were either you know, physical in nature, which you know you can pass down genetics as far as like, you know, body type and whatnot, but not experience and working in that kind of, you know, you can't pass on experience, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, that the argument is kind of null there.
And they also, let's say they developed these skills as well, they also, after they were free, they also would face discrimination in the work field in general and in society.
Oh, of course, yeah, especially, you know, in those days. But B, if they were, you know, even if you could make that argument on a practical level, like a lot of those skills would be lost to technology, right? Like, you know, a lot of the things that they probably did, like, for instance, you know, like crop picking,
carting,
you know, huh?
like crop harvesting, like a lot of that is done manually. I mean, not manually by machines these days, by tractors.
Exactly. A lot of it is done by tractors and, you know, different mass production where, you know, the labor for it is much less intense. You know, it could be just operate a machine rather than having to do it yourself. So, you know, that was probably, you know, I'm not gonna insert thoughts into that person's mind, but I'm just gonna say, like, you know, you could probably have phrased that better and just kept it to a speaking of objectivity. But the thing is like, it's funny because what they do is they say this person returned to it last year and then, you know, decided to leave it almost immediately, like, you know, because he's gonna fight against it. Like, he does know that DeSantis was the governor, you know, and was fighting against this for a long time, right? Like, he does know that, right? Being a teacher. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But, you really... So, he says... Now, I just want to get to a little bit of propaganda here, because this is the type of quotes that they choose to use. And it really... You know, I talk about a lot about propaganda on this show and how articles phrase things to make you feel bad or feel a certain way about something, to make you go up in arms. But this is a really clear example of one that I think speaks to a entitlement that's here in American society. And so I'm going to read this quote that they chose to use. You really don't know what you should be properly teaching that's safe to keep you from losing your job, losing your home, losing your car, unable to feed yourself, Gundy said. So that kind of a quote right there makes it look like the state of Florida is, by proxy, responsible for him having a home, a car, and food. And actually, they're not. They're an employer that you can choose to leave. You can choose to, make your own money. You can choose to do a countless amount of things, right? And, if so many teachers decide that they don't want to put up with these rules, or, that they're having trouble objectively teaching, then that is their choice to not teach anymore, develop a new skill, find employment elsewhere. It's not like teaching has been held up as this like profession that pays, very, very well anyway, right? And you're beholden to the tax that you steal from, most of the local population when you're a teacher. So this article wants you to feel bad for this person that has willingly signed up to be controlled by the state curriculum for what they are choosing to, or what the state has chosen is acceptable and not acceptable to teach. So why are you a victim?
Well, I mean, he isn't a victim. Like you said, very editorialized it. Like, he doesn't even have to quit right away and lose out on the income. He can just be aware of what's going on and look for a new job whilst teaching. Like, and if he has an objection to teaching this curriculum while he's looking for a new job, like, I don't even think he has to teach it technically. Like, I think it would be a bit hard to fire a teacher right away. Like, he could get away with just bullshit and it's putting it off while he looks for a job.
Yeah, I would say that. And, just to put the onus of yourself on anybody else. Like, oh, you're the one making me lose my car and my job and my home and all this, like, no, you can, if somebody hires you, you are beholden to do that person's or that corporation's or whatever. You're beholden to do what they are paying you to do. That is your contract with them. And if you choose not to do that, then you need to negotiate either the terms of your contract, or you need to, leave. I mean, and have them find somebody else. Now, to be fair, this person did that. This person left, right? So it's not like this person isn't following my advice. They're certainly not being a hypocrite in this sense. But then why do you need to come out and say this when you leave, as if somebody is, as if you are not responsible for you leaving, right? You knew this when you signed up for the job. In fact, it says in this article that you were a teacher before and you left the profession and you came back to it. So what is different now? The rules are a little bit different now because of the law, but you knew the entire time that you were beholden to the state of Florida and whatever their curriculum was. So the fact that this article tries to make him sound like he's just, out there, he's helpless. Well, he's not.
I think the reason the article does it and why he allowed himself to be presented that way is because it gets more engagement, it gets more clicks, it gets more outrage by the general population hearing an editorialization like that.
Yeah. This article goes on to say, just last week, Vice President Kamala Harris visited Jacksonville to denounce the state's new standards, calling them propaganda. So, obviously, they've upset Kamala Harris. She can visit Florida, but she can't visit the border, even though she was the border czar. So Mog wanted us to cover this one. Mom took her autistic son into movie theater bathroom. Then cops were called, suit says. So I'll explain this a little bit, and then we'll discuss, or I'll read a little bit of this article so you can get the general gist. I won't have to read too much. Christine Gallinaro, or Gallinaro probably, and her 15-year-old son loved visiting their local New Jersey movie theater. Because of course you have to start with that. You have to start with, they loved it. They just, you know, like you can't just
you gotta set it up so the audience feels bad when all their hopes and dreams get crushed.
Exactly. Like you gotta make her an every woman, right? It was one of her son's favorite places to visit, until a manager forced them to leave the Cinemark in Hazlitt on June 16th, a Friday evening that resulted in the police getting called to remove them, according to a new lawsuit. While sitting and watching Disney and Pixar's animated film Elemental, which, to be fair, like, you should call the police on them for that, right? Like, you should call the police on them for watching a Disney movie and supporting
Imagine, I mean, especially Elemental, like, imagine all this drama stemming from going to watch Elemental.
What is Elemental anyway? I guess I really am living under a rock.
It's a really bad movie about like different elements like fire, earth, and water. I believe all coexisting, living together peacefully.
Oh gosh, there can't be any hidden agenda in that, can there? Gallinaro's son, who is autistic and has speech delays, needed to use the bathroom. A complaint filed July 25th. In the Superior Court of Monmouth County, Monmouth? Is that how you pronounce it? Monmouth, I think? Says, Gallinaro brought him into the women's restroom with her, as he cannot use public bathrooms alone, according to the complaint. As they were leaving the restroom, the complaint says a Cinemark Hazlitt 12 manager angrily approached them and shouted blatantly discriminatory remarks toward them. This is the manager talking, he shouldn't be in here, the manager is accused of saying in the theater's lobby full of moviegoers, according to the complaint. She's also accused of saying that a grown man should not be in the women's restroom, as the restroom is not a transgender bathroom, and ordered an assistant manager to call the police, according to the complaint. So, here's the thing, like, this happens all the time. I don't know how much of this is... This just seems very odd to me, first of all. A manager coming over and screaming at a mom that has a clearly, like, challenged son. You know, because he's... I think this said he was 12? Is that what it's... Or 15. I'm sorry. And, you know, just looking at the picture, like, you can kind of tell... Like, I don't think this is a staged picture. You can kind of tell that there's something, you know, there. And I just... That seems very odd to me, that a manager... Like, I could see a manager coming over and being like, hey, you know, I just want to make sure everything's all right. Like, I saw you bring your son into the restroom, and, you know... Another customer, you know, another female customer complained because, you know, because they heard a man in there or something. Like, I could see that, but, you know, like, to go stomping across the movie theater and, like, screaming at this person just seems very odd. You know, maybe that's what happened. I'm not going to say that.
You know, I mean, I'll give it a whole... You know, with a situation like this, it's like a he said, she said. Like, unless there's, like, video of what happened, it's hard to make it. Like, I can see it. I can definitely see that happen, the manager doing that. I can definitely see a manager just getting really angry like that. Like, people behave bizarrely. I can see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
Like I said, it's hard to determine. It's like I said, a he said, she said story. Like.
Mm-hmm. And now they do say they have video, and on the video,
like, I mean, it could play out like this. I don't know what the article says, but like another customer in the bathroom sees like a 15-year-old, maybe thinks it's a grown man, freaks out, and goes to the manager. Yeah. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing about people in public. Like, I'm familiar with IRL streaming personally, and people in public, they could report something to the manager and they will tell a completely fabrication, complete lie. So
Mm-hmm.
I can see a customer overreacting, telling the manager something complete bullshit, and that's what set the manager off. I can definitely see something like that happening.
Yeah, like if he was acting on faulty information. And then it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like, this article doesn't say it, but it sounds like she went off the rails after this and, like, reacted, like, by probably, just being very defensive. And, probably more than she should have been, I guess. But, I don't know. I mean, this is a case where, I think we see this happen all the time where we have, like, kind of young children that go with, their mom or dad into the opposite restroom, and I think it's okay, like, for that, because obviously they're being escorted and, they're probably going to be in a stall, right? But, I guess they're kind of bringing this up because it's a little bit more borderline, and they're trying to, like, at 15, you're kind of starting to be, you're probably at least past or in the middle of the puberty thing stage of your life. So, the thing is that I guess this is what, they're alluding to is, and if he's autistic, then maybe maybe he's talking or saying inappropriate things like that you would not normally say, probably in the middle of a women's restroom, especially if you're a guy.
What do you mean by, like, inappropriate things? Like, can you clarify on that?
Well, my thought of it would be like, for instance, a lot of times they don't have the social recognitions that a lot of people would have. So, like, you would go in there and, like, let's say you had, a little bit of an accident with your clothing or something, you probably wouldn't shout out that, you crapped your pants or, something like that. And, like, sometimes, an autistic person won't have that social recognition, and they will say things like that, or things that would make, possibly women uncomfortable, like mom, like, there's a bunch of, why am I in here with all the girls, or, like, I don't know, that kind of a thing where you normally wouldn't say it in the midst of a public area. They might say those kinds of things, so that not necessarily inappropriate, like, he went in there and was talking about their boobs or anything like that, just like more along the lines of, like, things that could potentially make a woman uncomfortable.
Does the article, like, clarify whether or not, like, how this really went down? Like, did a woman customer report it to the manager? Like, did it clarify that at all?
Let's see. I don't see. Probably wouldn't say that. Wait. They here's a fun part. This doesn't answer your question, but I'll try to find out. Other than asking Guy Nero and her son to leave, and then later offering free movie tickets after they could not process a refund for the already purchased movie tickets. It's pretty funny. Like, oh, we can come back another time, though. See, that's actually an interesting thing. Like, they actually did try to resolve it by doing that. Like.
And then how did the police get involved then? Like, was this...
because I think what it says is, like, it sounds like she started causing a scene. Like, she got upset, and they were saying, you're causing a disturbance. Because it says he asked the manager to call the police. because she was causing a disturbance.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I don't know. I might have to actually watch the video or find the video somewhere. It doesn't say that anybody complained. Also, oh wait, no, I guess it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where. Okay, yeah, it just says it's local. It just says where the city is, so it's just south of New York City. Yeah, it doesn't say that, but isn't that weird? I don't know if that's weird to you. It's weird to me, though, because them trying to resolve this after she, by giving her free movie tickets at all, sounds very
I wonder
weird.
why they couldn't give her. Well, I get maybe she made the purchase on a credit card or debit card, and they couldn't refund to that. That's why they didn't give cash.
Yeah. I don't know. That just seems weird. But anyway.
And why would she want to go back too,
That's the whole thing. I was like, why would you offer, is somebody that you have to call the police on, why would you offer to give them a return ticket?
Oh.
I think there's more there than that article wants to let on, so.
I'd have a funny story I could tell you one day. Maybe on stream. I won't tell it tonight because it's kind of a long one, but one time I got banned from a store, and I went back in a year later, and they recognized me and they said, "Call the police." And it was they locked the door.
Really?
It was electronic door lock, and
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to him, and then I won't go in. I'll go in detail some other time. But when I tried to leave, because I tried to yank in the door, it was locked. But they eventually locked, and I went on my way. I want to go back too. I want to see if they still recognize me.
Mog says shocking. He's shocked that you have a story to tell like that.
Yeah, this is really a wild story. I might tell it on stream one day if it.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get to the other topic you want to talk about, which is North Korea. The only new news that I could really find on it was, they had a military parade, and China and Russia attended. So this article says, Chinese and Russian officials stood shoulder to shoulder with Kim Jong-un as they reviewed North Korea's latest nuclear-capable missiles and new attack drones at a military parade in Pyongyang, North Korean state media showed on Friday. The widely anticipated parade in the capital on Thursday night commemorated the 70th anniversary of the end of the Korean War, celebrated in North Korea as Victory Day. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu's visit was the first by Moscow's defense official since the 1991 breakup of the Soviet Union. China's visitors were the country's first such delegation since the COVID-19 pandemic began. Their appearance at events with the North's nuclear missiles, banned by the United Nations Security Council with Chinese and Russian support, marked a contrast with previous years when Beijing and Moscow sought to distance themselves from their neighbors' nuclear weapons and ballistic missile development. So, I don't think this is really a surprise. Kind of drove them into the, with the war on Ukraine and Russia, where everybody is, supporting Ukraine, and saying, oh, Russia's really evil and horrible and hates democracy, and, somehow Ukraine likes democracy, even though they jail their political opponents. That's what, all the Western countries are saying. I'm not really surprised that they would drive China and Russia into kind of a pseudo-alliance with North Korea.
Why is it's taken as long? Because from what I understand, North Korea has a lot of natural mineral resources that they themselves can't really utilize because they don't have the equipment for it.
See, I've heard that North Korea is kind of a wasteland, but maybe that's just propaganda from what I've
No,
heard, so.
that's pretty much propaganda. Like it has a lot of, like I said, natural mineral resources, and had a lot of farmland too. Like I don't know how their farmland is doing because it was damaged extensively in the Korean War. Because after the war ended, North Korea was actually the more prosperous country for a long while until about I don't know when their economic downward started, but the fall of the Soviet Union definitely really caved them in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know what I mean. China, it doesn't surprise me at all because China seems to, have common type of goals with North Korea as far as the tension with the United States and especially with China. Biden kind of being a little bit more. Putting on the tariffs and whatnot.
And of course, they have their own little Ukraine, Taiwan as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, America's always, supporting Taiwan and whatnot.
And South Korea as well to an extent because, China will never let North Korea fall because they don't want South Korea on their border, a U.S. puppet.
Right. So, and like I said, Russia doesn't surprise me at all. But
what I really I want to see what you can dig up, but I really want to, like, are you familiar with the story of Travis King?
No.
Well, recently, like, this was pretty recent, like, there's been updates and stuff, but Travis King was a American private who allegedly defected over into North Korea after facing disciplinary actions. It was due to return to the United States, and instead he left the airport, went on a group tour to the DMZ, and just ran across the border to North Korea. And for about a week afterwards, like, America was trying to get in contact with North Korea about the status of him, about his well-being, and they were pretty much left on read for about a week. And so I was just seeing if there were any updates about there, like, and regarding him, or what your thoughts on that situation were.
I had heard about someone someone kind of being detained there. I didn't know that was the situation. I had seen a few different, and I didn't even know that was his name. I had seen they were holding someone, and I was like, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, kind of North Korea. Wasn't there one where, like, everybody was praising Trump because the remains of somebody they hadn't known about? It was an American that was in North Korea and was there for like years and then like died in North Korea, and the government gave the remains. It's like, okay, the government. I mean, we don't even know.
Are you talking about the Otto case?
I don't know. I just remember Trump brought back.
I mean, I think I know what you're talking about. It was a college student who was arrested in North Korea.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
No, he was returned to alive to the United States, but when he was in the United States, he died.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah, no. North Korea returned him alive, but like in a vegetative state, and then
he
later passed.
Okay. Yeah. Now I kind of like he was like malnourished and everything, if I remember right. Yeah.
Well, no, I don't believe there is any malnourishment. Like, there is no signs of beating either. Like, personally, like, I think, like, this is just my belief on the situation. This isn't like confirmed or anything, but I believe he attempted suicide by hanging by just short. I don't know why I can't speak anymore. Like, this happens, but I believe he attempted suicide and just lost oxygen to his brain, and that's why he was in a vegetative state.
Maybe.
That's what I think happened, personally. But what about him and Trump?
Oh, I was just saying, I mean, if that's how if that's how they were returned, and this was kind of Trump who was trying to extend an olive branch to them and, actually was the first president to set foot on their soil in a long time, like, I'm not surprised that, this guy wouldn't be returned either. I know the length of time isn't as long, but
I mean, the interesting thing is though, like, because there's differences in the case. Like Otto was arrested for an alleged crime, and this person, seems to be a defector.
yeah,
There could be possible he doesn't want to come back to America. Like
right.
they could potentially treat Travis King differently and use him in their own propaganda films, like other American defectors in the past.
Right.
But it's like you don't know, like, because the last American defectors like defected in about the 1960s, so you don't know how modern North Korea would really treat an American defector in these days. It's a gamble, really.
Right. Catch up with chat a little bit. I was searched at Pig, which is a chain store, I guess. I've never heard of it, but
A chained up pig.
I guess that's what it is. Because they thought I was shoplifting. My mom was in the car. I came out complaining as well as a 12-year-old Mogwai could, and long story short, we got banned. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you still banned from there? Can you shop at Pig again? North Korea has a lot of false perception, false fronts, and nice-looking areas that are 100% fake from all the documentaries I've seen. I call BS also on running across the DMZ. So I guess Mog thinks...
I'm running across the DMZ, though. I mean, there are eyewitnesses around for it.
Oh. And then we have this story. This is fun. Which is... Ukraine uses North Korean rockets to blast Russian forces. It's just one of the articles, but there were several articles saying this. And it's just... Ukrainian soldiers were observed using North Korean rockets that they said were seized by a friendly country before being delivered to Ukraine, the Financial Times reported on Saturday. Ukraine's defense ministry suggested the arms were captured from the Russians, the newspaper said. The United States has accused North Korea of providing arms to Russia, including alleged shipments by sea, but has not offered proof, and North Korean weapons have not been widely observed on the battlefields in Ukraine. Well, now they are, but they're not being used by Russia.
Well, I don't get the finger wagging towards North Korea either. Like, it's a sovereign nation; they can support whoever they want.
Yeah, they can do business, but I guess any country that isn't
like if you're not engaged in the proxy war against Russia, then shame on you.
Or if you're engaged but you're a Russian ally, that's. Well, again, who, after the whole world, pretty much rebuked Russia, like, most countries rebuked Russia besides some of the Middle East, what did you expect to happen? Like, of course they're gonna, I mean, Kim Jong-un isn't gonna be like, oh, I don't want Russia on my side either, like, especially because North America and, NATO isn't on his side, so it's like, you expect him just not to have any allies, especially a powerful one like Russia. The North Korean weapons were shown by Ukrainian troops operating Soviet-era Grad multiple launch rocket systems near the destroyed eastern city of Bakhmut, site of lengthy, brutal fighting, the report said. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu, this goes back to the visit. So I just thought it was kind of funny because it's, Ukraine saying like, oh, no, we just, like, they're being vague and just being like, yeah, they were captured kind of, sort of, by some friendly country that gave us the weapons. Like, okay, sure. And finally, we're going to get to Trump a little bit. Fresh charges tie Trump even
We're
more.
going on to hell. I
What's
want
that?
to talk more. I want to talk more about Ukraine.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I didn't know if you. But okay. Let me back up here. Like, based on this Ukraine situation in general, this war between Ukraine and Russia, what do you think the end outcome here is for these countries?
Ukraine versus Russia, you mean?
Yeah. How do you think? Yeah. What do you think the end outcome is? How do you think the war is going to end?
I think it's going to go on for a couple more years, And I think that, they're just going to sap tons of defense spending and then eventually just kind of have this, like, drawn out type of, like, armistice, basically, where, both sides kind of lay claim, but one gives to the other, to the Crimea region. And I think it's just, one side will, even though they'll both lay claim to it, like, one side will govern it and the other won't interfere too much. But I think that's what's eventually going to happen. And it's just a long, pointless war that's not going to result in much. I do think that...
Well, it greatly benefited the Western nations.
What's that?
It greatly benefited the Western nations. Not Ukraine, but the West it benefited.
It meaning the...
Well, because over this war with Ukraine and Russia, there's new countries joining NATO. For instance, Finland, that's right on the border with Russia. That is a huge concern to Russia, a huge gain for the West.
Mm-hmm.
And also, these Western nations, they can just dump a lot of their outdated military stuff they just want to get rid of into Ukraine and just try to bleed Russia as much as they can. That's another benefit to the West, instead of risking their own stuff, their own lives, etc.
Gotcha. So, like, kind of just have
like
it's
like a big proxy war, pretty much. Like, and Ukraine is just a sacrificial lamb.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Western nations, the Western leaders, they truly do not care about Ukraine. They would, I predict either the Russian government, there's another coup in the Russian government, and there's a withdrawal from Ukraine. If that doesn't happen, I just see down the line it being a North-South Korea situation where Eastern Ukraine is just in Russian hands.
Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of always like a
frozen conflict, pretty much, like how North and South is.
Yeah, where there's a set border and just really tense relationship.
Right.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, I think that so you think that Russia is going to take the parts that they want, you think, eventually?
Yeah, I think so. If the Putin government holds up and there's not internal conflict.
Yeah. Well,
because the thing is, like, is at this point it's a war of attrition.
Mm-hmm.
And Russia outnumbers Ukraine in terms of artillery firepower, in terms of soldiers. They can just continue to grind down Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And these Western nations sending tanks, sending missiles, like, it's not going to do anything if Ukraine does not have boots on the ground.
Well, one thing that I did see, and I didn't bring this article into it, but I saw when I was looking at a different article, was that the Russians specialize in winter combat. So, they were saying Ukraine is trying to use the summer months to grind down Russia before the winter months, and Russia has an advantage. So I don't know how credible that is, but it definitely makes sense if it's anything historical, because that's when, in the summer months, the Germans, when they attacked Russia, they were advancing and doing really well, and the Russian counterattacks came in the winter. So I don't know how. Again,
that's not necessarily accurate. Like, because the reason in Barbarossa in 1941 when they first invaded, it's more due to the Soviet Union going through. They purged a lot of their officers. Their military was going through reformation, and so that's what led to, like, a lot of the long-term gains.
Mm-hmm.
And the real reason this German stall in the winter is due to logistics. They way overstretched their supply lines. The weather didn't have that much to do with it.
Gotcha. Catch up with chat a little bit. Store chain switched ownership, so good question. I think it will end during sweep weeks, but it might be a season finally continued into season 3, meaning he's talking about the Russian Ukraine war. Mr. Putin, tear down this wall. Just imagine. Hopefully we can get
well, at least Putin's losing the war in Iraq.
Yeah. Hey, Lance, how you doing? All right. Are you ready to talk about Trump now, or you have anything more?
Uh, you can go talk about Trump.
Well, there's not much to say. It's just more of the media circus around Trump. Fresh charges tie Trump even more closely to cover-up effort that could deepen his legal woes. It's a stunning new allegation in an already serious case. Former President Donald Trump sought to delete Mar-a-Lago surveillance footage to obstruct the Justice Department's investigation into his handling of classified documents. The latest criminal charges, unsealed Thursday, deepened Trump's legal jeopardy, alleging a more central role for the former president than previously known in a cover-up that prosecutors say was meant to prevent them from recovering top-secret documents he took with him after he left the White House. Coming as Trump braces for possible additional indictments related to efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Because, that's the only thing that we can talk about these days. Like, January 6th, Trump didn't like the election results. He's a bad person, and anything he says should be discredited because, election, January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. That's all we can talk about in the media these days. Here's the thing that I'm going to say about this. He's the front runner. They're going to try to disqualify him. I think that most of the Republican hopefuls know that their only chance is for Trump to basically be disqualified. That's not something that makes me happy because I have no intention of voting for Trump as of now. But, the thing is that I just don't see... first of all, that's his surveillance footage. So I don't know what the crime is here.
To be fair, I'm not a lawyer. I think it really depends on the circumstances. If the detectives know you're in possession of some sort of evidence, they know it and they request it, and then you destroy it, that would be obstruction. But if there is no such order and it happened on the night he just deleted the footage, that's his footage.
Well, this says sought to delete, so I don't know if that means that he asked someone to delete it and then they subpoenaed it and he didn't, or if it means that he deleted some but not all. I don't know. I get it if it's being subpoenaed, they have a legal precedent to get it, but I don't think it really talks about that much in this article. It just kind of talks about, it says video from the home would become vital because the government's case, because prosecutor says it shows this guy moving boxes in and out of a storage room, an act alleged to have been done at Trump's direction and in an effort to hide Okay, so the day after a draft subpoena was sent to the Trump Organization, the indictment says Trump called de Oliveira and spoke with him for about 24 minutes, though the details of that conversation are not included in the indictment. De Oliveira is described by prosecutors as asking Mar-a-Lago information technology staffer several days later how long the server retained footage for, and is quoted as telling the employee that the boss wanted it deleted. Well, I'd have to hear that exact conversation. I'm doing all right, Lance. Thanks for asking. Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday or Sunday. Woo.
It's Monday, actually.
Probably. Well, in some countries it is. So, here's the thing, just saying that he wanted it deleted or the boss wanted it deleted isn't, that could just be saying, yeah, he wishes it was deleted kind of a thing. I don't know. I guess they'd have to...
And what if they just want to clear out hard drive space? The
I mean,
burden of the proof is on the state.
It just feels like they're trying to, like, I know, yeah. It just feels like they're trying to just, like, throw so many darts at him.
Oh, they want Trump's goose cooked. They will do. They don't like him.
Yeah, it just feels like they're just throwing darts and while they're blindfolded and trying to hit something. I mean, I don't know if you ever listened to that phone call, like the case in Georgia. If you ever listened to that phone call
About the election of 2020.
yeah, like it was such a nothing, and they used like one quote from it, and I was like, yes, I heard that quote, and I am not at all swayed by it because it was like about an hour phone call, if I recall correctly. And, one day I had nothing better to do, so I just listened to it. And it was a nothing. And, they tried to prosecute him there. Actually, it's still an ongoing one, along with the New York case. And it's just, I don't know. They really want to defeat Republicans. And I think one of the things that, can happen is if they split the Republican Party, it's just the Democrats take, super majorities in like every single legislative branch.
It's funny Trump is being prosecuted for these alleged crimes, but Bush and Cheney for getting us to Iraq, nothing but crickets.
Well, yeah, or pretty much. Well, yeah, I mean, that's all I'll just agree with you there. I mean, they are war criminals, they lied, and, at the time it was definitely discussed, but yeah, nothing ever really happened to them.
Nothing happens either to the people who strip rights through the Patriot Act, either people who uphold it. But Trump is the big bad orange here. He's everything wrong with the country.
Absolutely.
And they're going to try to nail him to the cross.
Yep. They just don't want him to run. And at this point, having pivoted himself into the Republican, front runner, I mean, he just has a solidified base. And I don't see a lot of the Trump base voting for somebody else, Just a lot of people are hard behind him. And I don't know, I don't see good things for the Republican Party in 2024.
I mean, the Republican Party's dead at this point, and it's not going to last that much longer. Because, like I said, it's voter demographics are going to change majorly in the 2028 elections. Like the boomers, they're no longer the majority in the country at that point.
And based on how easy it is to vote, like, they're probably going to have it maybe by then. I mean, they might have like online voting. I mean, that's assuming the world lasts that long, but because I'm skeptical that it will.
You never know. Like, based on that congressional hearing, what if the aliens just decide to attack us, Caster?
They very well might, and that could result in them being the new, we probably wouldn't have elections under them. So,
talk about Trump here. Like, do you think Trump will end up serving jail time? Do you think the gavel will come down on him and he will get a sentence?
He actually might. He might actually serve a little bit of jail time. I don't think it would be anything significant, but he very well might serve a little bit. So,
what would you say to the liberals out there calling for the death penalty in the case for treason? Like, any comment on that at all?
I think it's. I mean, they call for it, but actually charging him with it is a much different story, and especially when he was the president, where he was doing negotiations and had a lot of roles to fill. I think would be very, very tricky to try to nail him on that. they would have tried to charge him with it formally, and they haven't done that. So, yeah, I don't think that's even I don't even think that's on the table. So they're just being hyperbolic. If you remember, they also wanted. They were pretty much calling for the excommunication and death of people that didn't get the COVID vaccines. So, it's very similar to that.
All right, I remember those days.
Yeah. So,
but you think Trump might actually serve a life sentence? Do you think he would ever be put in like a legitimate prison, or would it be like a cushy house arrest, Secret Service detail?
No, Secret Service.
So like house arrest.
Yeah, or like a federal facility. It wouldn't even be a prison, just like a federal place where
and the whole thing with Trump is it raises very interesting questions, because someone like Donald, he can't have a fair trial.
Right.
Like the judge, prosecutor, they're all going to have, the jury, they're all going to have biases.
Mm-hmm.
If you have someone on the jury who voted for or against Trump, you can't have him on the jury. That would be biased. You'd have to. It'd be very hard to get unbiased jury for him.
Yeah, I think it would always result in. Everybody knows who Trump is, obviously, in the U.S.
A lot of people, he's a pretty divisive man. A lot of people have a strong opinion on him, one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Pearl says, did I miss my question being answered? If so, what was your answer? It would be like a summer camp. Oh, yeah, for Trump. My answer was Mitch McConnell. Starlight's answer was Joe Biden, as long as he had a teleprompter, basically. So. And was reading Cat in the Hat.
You can't mess up Cat in the Hat. It's like little tiny words.
Yeah. But you would trust Joe with your life. That's wild. Well, Joe is.
He's never. I don't know if I don't think Pearl's here for this, but like I said, Joe Biden has never let me down.
Here's the thing, though. We're all trusting Joe Biden with our lives, even if you're not in America. You're kind of forced to trust him with your life right now. In a certain way.
Oh man, just imagine frickin' Joe Biden. If nuclear war is imminent, and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Carrot Top, and John Fetterman, or whatever his first name is, had to go to Russia to try to negotiate with Putin. Imagine the world relying on that.
It would be great. Oh, that sounds like some awesome days ahead for us. Well, go ahead.
No, we're not. We're nowhere near done here, Caster. What do you honestly think the honest probability of nuclear war is in your lifetime? Like, what honest % chance would you give it?
That assumes that China or any of our enemies would resort to nuclear war rather than, just like chemical warfare and just like a complete like disintegration of infrastructure, just based on attacking the power grid and doing that kind of a thing. Like that, again, that assumes war at all. I would think it would be not a very good % chance of that. Just reason being is because then they'd have to defend against that as well, right? So I think they would try a different route. And like I said, I think with electronic communication and everything is automated, I don't think that the security for certain systems is probably as high as it should be. So I think that they would, if every place in the U.S. lost power simultaneously, that would
even just internet, because a lot of businesses, like when they do debit credit cards, all the transactions are done digitally.
Yeah, exactly. So if you just destroyed all that, like even on a tier 1 type of level, like it would wouldn't take a few hours and there would just be chaos. So
Yeah, there would be people fighting over toilet paper again.
Well, that, but and then you're also in an armed country, so people would probably be in the street shooting each other, and you can't, government trying to recover from that without putting some very strong measures into place, and then counterattacking on top of that. Like, what do you? I think if they were able to do that, everything would just fold, and I think that is the more likely scenario of, whether it be if they're going to do a war, that being the outset of the war rather than trying to do a nuclear war, because I don't think a nuclear war would be as beneficial to them or effective. Let's see. What do you think is the chance of you seeing Joe fall off his bike again in your lifetime?
I think ever since that incident, I think he shot away from bicycles. But we have seen him on several occasions fall down a flight of stairs, fall on a stage. So I think we do definitely see a strong possibility of Joe Biden perhaps falling out of the Oval Office chair.
They even gave him a different set of stairs for Air Force One.
Maybe even falling over a podium while speaking, down off the stage into the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are some strong contenders there.
Didn't he just fall down on stage or something recently? Like he was just.
I saw the video. I don't remember. I don't remember the context.
Yeah, I feel like he just
fell
down.
I think he walked forward and fell down.
Okay.
I guess I don't exactly remember the context of what happened.
But that would, I'm sure we'll see him fall again. Don't worry.
I love when he said "God save the Queen" at the end of one speech.
Oh, Joe Biden. Isn't he amazing?
He is. I also love Putin's losing the war in Iraq as well, because what is he getting confused here? Because when America invaded Iraq, America wasn't losing. So he's not confusing, so what,
Oh. Well, repeat the line. End quote.
You also can't forget that one time after that one, school shooting, I think it was, he goes out on stage and says, "My name is Joe Biden," and then talks about ice cream.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was, and how that lady had good-looking kids or whatever. Yeah.
Did you see the video of Joe Biden nibbling on a kid?
No, not a recent one. Wow.
Yeah, the kid was terrified. And after the nibbling, he was sniffing.
My favorite is when they had to have a security member dress up as an Easter bunny to make sure he was his hand. Yeah, the Easter bunny was directing him off stage. Or off to the side or wherever he was going. I don't remember, but I mean, this is just amazing. I did want to talk to you a little bit about because Chewy, seeing you, I still owe you a little bit of a finish on the Final Fantasy Tactics FFT playthrough. I owe Starlight and I have to finish our all treasure run, and so we might have a few gaming streams coming up in the near future. Not anything competitive speed runs, but just to do a few of those. I might get a few of those in for you, because I do want to complete those. My problem with, I might just have to do the Sonic 06 Silver playthrough, because or was it Shadow? I don't remember.
Are you talking about my redeem?
Yeah, because
you never finished. You never finished.
Yeah,
it made me cry.
My thing with
made me cry.
I think with that game, like, I didn't find it that horrible. Like, it was annoying and stuff, but, like, it wasn't horrible. It just wasn't fun. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't hold my interest as far as like, as bad as, like, Drake of the 99 Dragons was, for instance, like, it was still kind of funny and, like, held my interest because of how bad it was. But, like, that game, Alone in the Dark 2, just didn't seem that fun to me, if that makes sense, you know?
Uh-huh.
So...
Yeah, you give me Sonic 06 Silver, I would die a happy man.
Yeah. Was it Shadow or Silver?
No, it was Silver.
Was it Silver? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you did at some point, I don't know when, you did like Sonic, and then you put up the next one for Silver. I redeemed Silver.
Oh, okay. If that's what it was, then because I didn't remember which one was second, which one was third, so I didn't. Because they go in an order in that game, so.
Yeah, Sonic first. Yeah, Sonic is first, and you can play a Silver, then Shadow.
Okay, so yeah, that's. So I probably haven't.
I really hope one day you get to see the final scenario of that game after you beat all three. It is awful.
I thought you loved that game.
I do. I do have good memories of it, but like the last scenario is the dog shit. I'm not afraid to say it.
So it didn't end on a good note for you.
No.
But anyway, I'll have that coming up probably mid-August is when we'll do some gaming stuff. Assuming Starlight's available for the finish of the Resident Evil 5 All Treasure. And
do you know what chapter we're on?
Didn't we just beat the thing where you throw the grenades into the thing's mouth? I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're, like, in that... I think because we went into that little, like, flower area. I think that's where we ended it.
Do you remember when I was speedrunning RE5 and I was at the end of the game and Sheva just jumps off the ladder to die randomly?
Yes. Yes. You almost rage quit, but you did end up finishing that run, I think, at the end. Another playthrough of the Monopolize lady. What? Starlight and Ice race Lifeline.
I mean, you look on the bright side, Lifeline did give you some very important skills. It taught you tongue twisters.
It did. That gave us free healing, or gave me free healing because you didn't have it.
God, I remember that game. Like you tried to help me in chat every time, telling me about these awesome power-ups, and they're all garbage. They all turned out to be
auto fire or whatever it was. Auto fire.
I'll leave it to you, and she just gets mowed down and never heals. Like, I find it funny. She always heals when you don't want her to with the voice, but on her own, she never does.
Yeah. Alright, well, that really is the end, because I do have to run tonight. So, thank you guys so much for joining. I appreciate it. I will be back. I don't know if Starlight will, but I will be back next week with more lowdown on politics and current events, and I hope you all join me again. Any last words from you, Starlight?
I do have one final question for thee. I don't know if I've asked this before, but if I did, I've certainly forgotten. If Joe Biden and Donald Trump are the nominees for the Republican and Democratic Party, who do you predict will win 2024?
Joe Biden.
Really? Seriously?
Absolutely. 100%.
Like what are can you like just run down just a few brief reasons why?
Because the thing is Joe Biden enjoys the incumbency, and independent voters are not going to be, even though Biden has a disapproval that's stubbornly high at 54%. That doesn't mean that 54% won't vote for him. That means that at least a portion of those people will not vote for Trump either. Like, kind of like me. Like, you know what I mean? And with independent voters, I think that a lot of people will choose Biden over Trump because Biden is much less controversial. If that's a good, there's probably a better word, but I'll use that word.
Less baggage, maybe.
Yeah, like than Trump is, and so like they might disapprove of him, but they'll be like, but I don't dislike him as much as I like Trump or dislike Trump. So Trump has a core fan base. They're very hardened behind him, and I don't know that that's going to translate well to independent voters this time around. So I think Biden will actually do better than he did in 2020.
So 100 million votes possible here for 2024?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yep. No, actually, I think there will be less votes overall. I don't think he'll get as many votes, but I think that he will get a larger proportion of votes than he did in 2020. So, but what about you? What do you think?
I'm gonna honestly, like, I thought Trump would win 2016. I thought Biden would win 2020. I'm honestly, for 2024, if they get the nomination, I'm gonna go with Trump. I feel like because I feel like people will look at the state of America, the state of the economy, and they'll just feel like it was better under Trump and more flock towards that direction. I think they'll feel like Biden failed them in that regard.
No,
because I generally, when I see American voters, like I've said before many times on stream, they tend to view things in just 4-year periods under the presidents.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good answer. We'll see what happens. You guys have a great night. Take care, and we'll see you next time.